This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
Testing Gulf seafood. A year after the Deepwater Horizon blowout, we don't see the oil from the disaster, but is Gulf seafood really in the clear? State and federal agencies run tests all the time. Sampling has stepped up close to the spill site. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration scientists say hydrocarbon testing has revealed nothing close to levels of concern. They say Gulf seafood is passing with flying colors. In fact, Florida Agriculture Commissioner Adam Putnam says our findings show that Florida seafood is safe and plentiful. I encourage consumers to put Florida seafood back on their plates and back in their diet. Hello, I'm Lloyd Patterson. This is CTC, Connecting the Community. Focus on Gulf seafood today. It's not just a big deal for our health. Gulf seafood and fishing mean big money to Northwest Florida and the entire Gulf Coast. Let's talk about it with our guests today. Dr. Richard Snyder has become a regular on these programs after the oil spill. He heads the Center for Environmental Diagnostics and Bioremediation at the University of West Florida. Also with us, Irv Miller. He's known far and wide as the chef at the renowned Jackson Steakhouse restaurant in Pensacola, also co-owner. Might recognize him from his Flavors of the Coast program that ran on public television for several years. And by phone from Orlando, we have Bruce Crowell of Destin. He's attending the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association convention. He is the incoming chair of the statewide group. He's got some 40 years in the field and is the general manager of the Emerald Grand in Destin. We welcome all of you. Thank you for being with us here today, talking about Gulf seafood and its health. The testing seems to point in a good direction. Dr. Snyder, your thought?
Well, I don't have anything, I can't disagree with any of the testing results, and really it isn't too great of a surprise. We're only finding trace levels of any residual oil chemicals all the way across the continental shelf, south of Pensacola, Destin, and Panama City. We're finding really nothing on the shoreline. There are a few tar balls left around, but the chemicals that we're really worried about in terms of toxicity, most of those are depleted, they're gone, the bacteria have eaten them. The real impacts that remain are well offshore, and there are some issues with some of the offshore fisheries and some of the deeper waters. But most of the seafood that's coming in, the testing's been done, the flesh is edible, there's no toxins in the flesh itself. We're more concerned now with the biological effects that are resulting from the impact that we got last summer.
And we'll get into that as we continue on the program. Irv Miller, you've done in a lot of fish and seafood in your years as a chef. What's your thought about what we hear about Gulf seafood?
And it's interesting that you put it that way, because I don't look like I have done them in, but yes, I understand what you're saying. We have served a lot of Gulf Coast seafood over the last 30 years, Destin to Pensacola. And like Doc was saying, we just feel strongly now that the waters are being tested more so than ever, and we feel confident in that our fish is safe, all our seafood is safe. I go through my vendors, Maria Seafood, who goes through the FDA and gets tested and tested and tested. So we're very confident that all the seafood is safe.
Okay, we'll come back and talk to you more about this as we go on. Let's go to Bruce Crowell in Orlando at the convention. You heard about the testing. There hasn't been any bad tests that I know of on federal or state, from federal or state agencies. Is that good enough for you, Bruce?
Well, it also doesn't surprise me either, because it's amazing the way the natural Mother Nature works and God works, I guess, because you know, even during the spill, we noticed that when the oil or the slick or whatever got a lot closer, all of the wildlife left. The birds left, the dolphin left, everybody left. You know, the fish left, and because they sensed, I suspect, that something just wasn't right. And then 3 or 4 weeks later, they came back. The interesting that I can speak with authority on, as hearing from the Destin fleet, which is, the state's largest charter fishing fleet, is that the only difference between fishing now and the way it used to be is that you'll find a whole bunch of different species in the same neighborhood, where they used to be more spread out. You can drop your hook and catch a grouper, a snapper, a tuna, a pompano, a flounder, all in the same place, because evidently they didn't leave crumbs when they left home to know their way back.
Oh, okay. Well, about the state of the business in Florida, how big is the Florida restaurant and hotel business in this state?
The FRLA is the largest association in the state of Florida. We have over 10,000 members. We have over a million employees. Hospitality is the largest industry in the state of Florida. It passed agriculture last year. We're at $42 billion industry. And so tourism has a lot to do with people coming to our state, not just to enjoy, the Magic Kingdom and so forth, but also to come to the Gulf Coast and enjoy fishing and enjoy all of those things that we consider our natural resources and natural beauty. So having great Gulf seafood is very important to the Gulf Coast.
Thank you, Bruce. Herb, have you had any customers show any reservations at all about ordering any Gulf seafood?
Well, there have been some limited inquiries, and we put them to rest. Actually, we let them decide for themselves whether they want to eat the seafood or not. But I was mentioning earlier, cobia season is winding up, and we had a couple people come in, and a lady asked if our cobia was local, and I said yes, of course. And she decided to opt out for it. So there is a little bit of customer concern, but nothing that we're really worried about in the long run.
Dr. Snyder, as well as being a scientist, you're also a consumer. Do you avoid eating Gulf seafood?
No, as a matter of fact, I was out pompano fishing a couple of weeks ago, and unfortunately I didn't buy them in a restaurant, but I took them home and threw them on the grill, and they were delicious. I have no hesitation going fishing and eating fish right now.
If you just joined us, you're watching Connecting the Community. I'm Lloyd Patterson. We're talking about the health of Gulf seafood. We have Chef Herb Miller from Jackson's Steakhouse with us, Dr. Snyder from UWF's Bioremediation Center, and on the phone we have Bruce Crowell, who's the incoming chair of the gigantic State Restaurant and Hotel Association. Now, we've already established that the testing has shown that the seafood that comes out of the Gulf of Mexico is very good. Yet, we see things like this was in the Pensacola News Journal. A recent article said, why are these fish sick? And it had some kind of ugly looking shots of snapper and some other fish that had some abnormalities. And you, Dr. Snyder, have some questions about this yourself, don't you?
Yeah, we certainly do. As I said, most of the chemicals from the oil seem to be disappearing. Mostly what we're finding now is in very, very deep water sediments. I mean, down off of the shelf break in the deep ocean is where we're finding the residual oil, what's remaining. But that doesn't mean that the biological effects aren't manifesting themselves now. One of the things that we see, or we suspect, that these fish may be stressed. And under stress, their immune system does not work as well. So ordinarily they would get rid of an infection just like we would. It would self-cure. But these infections are persisting, the fins are rotting, the lesions are persisting. We see these pigmentation problems and livers that are showing some abnormalities to them. And these all indicate exposure to some of these toxins from the oil. We think this is coming from well offshore, but we really just don't know. We also know that people are looking a lot closer at what's going on and noticing things that they've never noticed before. So that's one of the real challenges right now with the science is we see these abnormalities and we take them very, very seriously. We're very concerned about the biological effects that are starting to show up. Missing fish that are showing impacts from the offshore environment. Are these real? Are they related to the oil? Are they indirectly related to the oil? So, some of it may be just increased wounds because we have more larger fish because the fisheries were shut down last year. That's not necessarily a direct toxic effect, but it's an effect from the oil spill shutting down the fishery, and now we've got an indirect biological effect. So those are the kinds of things that we're trying to tease out this summer.
Yeah, it's very hard to connect these dots, isn't it? To say blame this on that and say it's absolutely because of that.
Yeah, cause and effect for environmental issues is extremely difficult.
Irv Miller, when you see pictures of obviously sick fish like this, does it cause concern for you as a chef?
Well, you showed me that picture earlier, and I had not seen that before, so that's the first for me to see that. And quite frankly, just before I came over here, I had stopped by the seafood store, Maria's, as well, and he just got done showing me an absolutely gorgeous snapper, trying to sell me some snapper, and I didn't need snapper tonight. So I'm sure that they exist. I have not seen any, and if I did see any, you could be sure that I wouldn't use them.
Bruce Crowell from Orlando. I know you can't see it because you're on the phone with us, but we showed a picture that was in the Pensacola News-Journal that showed some fish with some bruising, discoloration, etc. Do you think that's got the potential to create problems for your industry?
Well, anytime you show anything in the media that isn't just right, it's always a problem. I mean, that's how, we had an annihilated tourist season last year, is because the national networks just couldn't get enough of putting the same 3 oil-soaked birds and the 2 dead dolphin on the news all the time, and they didn't want to miss the opportunity this year at the 1-year anniversary to show the same 3 birds and the same 2 dead dolphins. So if they can find a fish that looks sick, they're going to put it in the print. That's just the way it works. I mean, it sells newspapers, or it brings people to do a little more investigating. I think if you talk to fishermen, they'll tell you that if they've been fishing for 40 years, and you can bring up a fish that something's wrong with its immune system before. The question I always have for everybody, and perhaps a doctor can answer, is that how much testing we were doing on fish before we had a Deepwater Horizon incident. Are we looking a little harder? Are we looking a little stronger? Are we testing more fish? I mean.
Okay, let's put that question to Dr. Snyder. Are we just looking a lot more carefully now and testing a lot more than we ever did before?
That's certainly a big factor. I've had people call me, approach me, talk to me about all kinds of things they're seeing now and asking, is this oil related? Things that are just naturally part of the system, and they're seasonal sometimes, and other things, and people are convinced that this is some oil effect, and we have to explain that, well, no, this is just natural, it's part of the natural variation. But we are hearing reports from the fishermen themselves, from some commercial fishermen, or where those photographs came from, and they were concerned enough about this that this was beyond what they considered normal. Yes, you find wounded fish all the time. You catch fish that have, lesions on them from being bitten by dolphins and sharks and other predatory fish, and it is a percentage of the population that will show these effects. But these fishermen were concerned to the point that the frequency was higher. Our fisheries biologist, Will Patterson, has been collecting samples and for him, who's been out there collecting scientifically for years prior to the spill, during the spill, and now after the spill, this winter he's seeing an increased frequency in these things, and that raises red flags for us when we see that frequency going up.
It raises red flags for you as you look forward, but as Irv Miller was saying, the seafood that's served in your restaurant, served in restaurants around Florida, and it comes from places where it's tested. There's no way a fish that looks like this is going to show up for sale or for consumption, is it?
No way.
And it's a huge problem because I don't recall how many months ago it was that they did a survey in Florida, and 24% of the people that live here said that they were had a big caution with regards to consuming Florida seafood, and so hopefully your show here today will convince people that there's nothing to worry about. Because I've never stopped eating the fresh seafood all the way through even Deepwater Horizon incident from the few boats that were still out there fishing. Because these guys, they know the fishery, the people that you mentioned earlier that are out there testing, and all of those that are exposed to you know, they did, I forget how many people, they taste it, they smell it, they look at it, they look at it filleted, they look at it whole, they look at, I mean, there's so many different ways that they test, and no one has found anything wrong, okay? And I don't have the, like you said, I'm on the phone, so I don't have the benefit of looking at those fish or determining what's wrong with them, nor am I a fish doctor. Okay. But those that are out there testing have said there's absolutely nothing wrong with our Florida seafood. As you said, Adam Putman, who's the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, has said everybody needs to come back and eat some fresh seafood because there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And that includes, by the way, stations as well. You know, the oysters, the shrimp, not just the fish. I might also point out that, you know, way out there in the deep water, you know, 2,000 feet and so forth, that's not where our seafood comes from. The people, the commercial boats that go out and bring in the grouper, the snapper, the trigger, and so forth that we find and we serve in our restaurants, we catch that fish at 100, 110, 120 feet. And there's not, in where they fish, there is not anything laying on the bottom that anybody has been able to find.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce.
All of that oil's down in the deep part of the Gulf over there where the wells are.
You've talked about charter fishermen. There are many fishing excursions, charter boats that pay the bills for a lot of people in our area. Boat captains get a close-up look at the Gulf and its sea life. And we talked with Captain Ken Bolden of the Just Because charter boat in Destin.
This season, as far as the fishing goes, it's been the normal movements of fish. Everything is normal. We're getting a lot of fish on each fishing trip. I mean, it's looking really good. They're sometimes called and concerned with it, but the fact is the government's given us the all clear on it. There's been no reports of any problem with the fish around here. My customers are eating it, I'm eating it, and we don't see any problem with it at all. We don't see any evidence of the oil or anything to show that it's been here. You know, like I said, the fish movement is still the same. You know, they're moving in like they should. I mean, everything's looking good. So, I mean, we just need customers.
Captain Ken Bolden likes what he sees from his point of view on the Just Because. And these are people who you would think would know the Gulf of Mexico and the fish very well. And Dr. Snyder and Irv Miller, unless there's some kind of massive conspiracy to cover up a sickness that exists in Gulf seafood, you got to believe these guys know what they're talking about.
No, I think that's certainly true. And there's an important thing to make clear here, that when we're talking about human health and human exposure, that's very different than what we're really concerned about, which is ecosystem effects. We're worried about loss of productivity. We're worried about fish that aren't showing up that ought to be showing up. We're worried about fish that are out there at very low levels of chemicals that may be dealing with stresses, that they're diverting energy away from growing more fish to dealing with these stresses. That has an ecosystem impact, affects the amount of fish that's out there to harvest. So we're not that concerned really with human health effects, because all the levels that we're seeing, all the testing that's being done, it's being done well, it's being done in certified labs. I mean, people should not be worried about this. You know, one of the big impacts from these oil spills is the psychological one. It is a huge psychological impact, more so than the actual impacts. But we are seeing things that we're concerned about, and those are really at an ecosystem level, and the production of the ecosystem and the health of the ecosystem, how the ability of the system to bounce back and sustain those fisheries that we all love so much.
The ecosystem is something that's kind of off the chart for your area of concern, Irv Miller, because you're worried about the fish that that are mature and they're coming in, and you're cooking, baking, whatever you're going to do with it.
We did talk about that, and we are concerned about what's to come, but for now, I just think that everybody just needs to continue to do their part, and everybody's doing their part. We're promoting the seafood. We're using the local seafood. We're grabbing it out of the waters. It's being tested. We need to support these guys, these fishermen, the shrimpers, the oystermen. I mean, these people are having a really difficult time right now. Gas prices aren't helping. Yeah. So it's a dying industry, and if we don't support them, you know, we're going to be in a lot worse shape.
Well, we know that Destin has a worldwide reputation for Gulf fishing, and tourists deliver a lot of money to this area. And we visited with one tourist who was visiting here from Tennessee.
We're from Memphis, and we come down once a year for a conference, and we love Destin and we love to fish, and so we got up early this morning and came out and ended up with 38 fish. I wondered this morning before we went out whether the oil spill would have had an effect on the fishing and the quality of the fish, and it didn't. I mean, of course, I'm no scientist, but it didn't seem to at all. The fish are fresh and beautiful, and we're looking forward to we're going to go get them cooked right now and have them for lunch.
So you're not worried at all? You think it's safe to eat?
Oh, absolutely safe to eat. I don't have any concern about this fish. It looks beautiful and fresh and delicious. The water couldn't have looked more beautiful. It was clean and green and blue, just a gorgeous day. I would swim in this water, and I'd let my children swim in this water. It's beautiful.
So you have a happy tourist from Tennessee, and she could hardly speak more highly about her experience being out on a charter fishing boat. And Bruce Crowell in Orlando, that's the type of thing you must love to hear.
We do love to hear that because there's over 200 boats in the fleet up in Destin, and those people that, like Irv said, that's really their livelihood. It's what they do. Some of them, it's the third generation of fishermen, and they depend on the, primarily the 100 days of season. Incidentally, snapper season opens June 1st, and they're looking to extend it once again through October because there's over 1 million pounds of snapper that weren't caught last year that are out there that could be caught this year. So we really need to encourage people to come down and support that industry and enjoy that fish in the restaurants, as well as catch it and bring it in and take it to your favorite local restaurant that will cook your catch.
Isn't that beautiful video from Destin? I mean, you just don't take a bad picture over there from the shore, do you? Dr. Snyder?
Yes, I think what he said was important, that about the fisheries being closed last year. Now is a great time to go fishing in Florida. Because the fishery was closed last year, the scientific fisheries data that's coming back shows a lot of the fish stocks are up. So if you ever wanted to go fishing in North Florida, now's the time.
They seem like they're running bigger too.
They are.
They
weren't
should be.
harvested last
They
year.
should be a little bit bigger.
Yep.
And does that not bode well for future generations?
Well, it could potentially, yes, if those fish are allowed to spawn, and the recruitment, we call it recruitment, the babies that enter the populations, that's where the big concern is now. The babies that should have been born last summer, are they going to be showing up on the reefs this summer? And that's like Will Patterson at UWF or out there investigating the reefs offshore. That's what he's looking for, is the recruitment and also any stress indications that are in the fish.
The levels of hydrocarbons that they've been testing for have, according to federal officials, show absolutely nothing to worry about. In fact, LSU says that they calculated that a person would have to eat 63 pounds of shrimp or crab, 5 pounds of oysters, or 9 pounds of fish every day for 5 years and still would not exceed the FDA's level of concern. Now, people like seafood a lot.
We want them as customers.
The beauty of that is you could actually eat that much and never gain weight.
Well, not if you have it prepared. It depends on how it's prepared. Come on now.
You should go to Jackson's and try to eat that much.
Please.
Yeah, we'd have to sell the station, though, to pay for it, I'm afraid.
I volunteer.
So as we get ready to wind up this program, we're public television. We come to our viewers and we see you as a citizen. We're not trying to sell you something. We're not treating our viewers as consumers. So we're not trying to push something or sell you something, but we want to bring us the best information we can about the health of our seafood that comes out of the Gulf. And what I'm saying is WSRE would not be involved in any kind of cover-up if there was information that was contrary to what federal and state officials say. And every indication is that seafood is really, really good. Irv?
This is important information to convey to people, absolutely. And I'm thrilled to have been here to help out and encourage people to continue to eat Gulf seafood.
Bruce Crowell said a moment ago that it's like more than 20% of people who live in Florida have reservations about eating seafood. You'd think that our people would be more up to speed on what's going on. Does that surprise you?
It surprises me a little bit.
Well, you know what the crazy thing about Florida, you know, I'm down here in Orlando, and when you live in Destin or the Panhandle, we call this the other Florida, and so they must have taken that survey down here. Because I can't wait to come back up there tomorrow and eat some fresh Gulf seafood, because we just don't see a lot of it even down here on the menus, you know.
Yeah. Bruce Snyder, did it surprise you that so many people in Florida would be worried about it, even though they're constantly
it's an old survey
exposed?
that was 6 months ago. I
Okay.
suspect that it's that percentage is a lot lower now. But I know that, you know, how people are. I mean, some people are going to wait for a little bit longer than others because they just have to be shown or hear the same results over and over again before they do anything. So, but and so there's a natural waiting period there. But as you have this show here, and as others have the same shows, and they have had quite a few even nationally that show that there's absolutely nothing wrong with the Gulf seafood. It's going to do nothing but help and point people towards enjoying the same seafood that they've had for years and years.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bruce Crowell from Orlando. He's the incoming chair of the State Hospitality Association, the Hotel and Restaurant Association, and that is big, big business, as you can imagine, in the state of Florida. I understand it's now the biggest employer in the state of Florida, and good grief, the taxes that they pour into the state from their business are paying a lot of bills around. So we appreciate your being with us today on this, Bruce.
My pleasure.
I know you're a very busy guy, and we'll let you go, and I thank you very much. Dr. Snyder, do you think people are going to do you think that they get too many mixed messages about what's going on in the Gulf? Because you deal with it at a scientific level. You've said time and time again, you're not worried about the fish that are out there today that people are eating. Your concern is in the ecosystem and down the road.
Yeah, I think the survey with the 20% of people, I'm not surprised by that at all, because most of the impact of this oil spill has been psychological. During the spill, even now after the spill, the reason the tourism crashed was as much psychological as it was reality. Even when the beaches were clean, before any oil got here, people were avoiding the beach just because there was an oil spill in the Gulf. And when we look at these events like this, hurricanes, oil spills, all these natural disasters that occur, it's the psychological impacts that linger, and people need to come through that themselves.
Sure.
You can only tell them so much, and really it has to come from themselves.
Dr. Snyder from UWF, thank you very much for being with us. Irv Miller from Jackson Steakhouse, thank you for being here and being straightforward, talking to us about what you've seen.
Thank you very much.
And we appreciate you watching another program here on WSRE PBS for the Gulf Coast. I'm Lloyd Patterson. Thank you for watching.